What's up, YouTube? In this video, I'm talking about the Brooklyn Nets and their upcoming offseason to kind of analyze what they can do as far as free agency goes, potential trades, kind of what the whole Kyrie Irving situation is. And we'll break this down in a little short video here. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let's just jump right into it. So first off, let's pull this up. This is the free agent kind of look for the Brooklyn Nets this year. As you can see, there are some important players that were a part of their playoff rotation. So we want to be able to make sure to keep those guys, preferably. But some guys we can let walk. So let's talk about the unrestricted free agents here. So we have Bruce Brown, who I think played really, really well for the Nets this year. And I thought he was just a guy who could come in, be that good utility player, be a guy who can set screens, became a really good three-point shooter as the year went on. And I think he's just a dude who really all teams in the NBA need now. He's not a star player by any means, but I think he's a guy that, again, every team in the NBA would like to have. So I think the Nets should prioritize keeping Brown, and signing him to a, 2 to 3 year deal, depending on how it matches up with where KD and Kyrie are at. Blake Griffin really just was totally not a non-factor in the playoffs. Obviously, just didn't really play at all. Coach Nash didn't really believe, I think, that Griffin could help the cause in their Celtics series, and nothing really happened from this whole Blake Griffin to the Nets thing. We obviously factored in last season when he was bought out by the Pistons and then later goes to the Nets. And then this year when he signs on a minimum deal, just nothing really from Blake this year. And I just wonder if he's done in the league. So, we wonder that. Andre Drummond, a guy who I don't think is done in the league, but just is done as being maybe a good center in the league, maybe a startable center. I think Drummond has the ability. Remember at the beginning of the season this year, he was with Philadelphia. During the Ben Simmons and James Harden trade, he comes over to Brooklyn and thought he played a good enough role. I think if you're expecting a whole lot from Drummond, you're just in a pretty bad situation. So I think Drummond is a good dude. I think he could maybe land on a team as a backup center. You look at Phoenix, where maybe Phoenix loses JaVale McGee, maybe Deandre Ayden, and maybe Andre can slip into there and sign for something that's a little bit more than the veteran minimum, but we'll see. Just an idea, but I think Drummond still should be in the league. LaMarcus Aldridge, we'll see if he's back. I don't really know the whole thing with him. Again, he had an injury or health concerns, and then he kind of just came back to the Nets. Everything was good. Didn't get any time in the playoffs. So I just wonder if he's kind of done at this point. Dragic, a good acquisition and a good guy that was able to get to the Nets from a buyout from the Raptors this year. But I think he's as good as gone. I think he's probably headed to Dallas. And really, outside of Brown, none of these guys really are guys that I think I need to have back on the Nets this year. So, leave it at that. Restricted free agents, they have Nicholas Claxton and David Duke. I've heard that Claxton isn't really a guy that I think the Nets are going to really value too much. We'll talk a little bit about why I think that is. But a team could steal Claxton for a relatively low price, and Brooklyn is just so, handcuffed salary cap wise that they may not want to pay Claxton a whole lot of money. So if a team comes in with an offer, then maybe the Nets are a little bit more willing to let him walk. They also have David Duke Jr. as a restricted free agent. I don't really think that that's a priority for this team at all, and we want to keep this video relatively short, so we'll skip over him. The player option as of right now by Patty Mills has yet to be accepted, so assuming that he opts in, good. I think that's a good player for them. I think he still is, even though he's a little bit of a disadvantage with his age and his defense, I think he does provide a spark offensively. And I think he's a guy who I'm fine with the Nets having and keeping. Team option, Kessler Edwards. We'll see exactly what happens there. I think that they'll probably bring him back. Young player. Can he be something on defense and provide some offense as well and just be kind of one of these traditional 3-and-D type of players? We'll see. But, we'll go from there. Extension eligible. So we've all heard about the whole Kyrie Irving situation. He has opted into his into his option, and is now going to be with the Nets this upcoming season. So now we get to this point with Kyrie where they had to figure out the extension. That's kind of the first priority, I feel like, for the Nets just in this whole offseason, is to prioritize the Kyrie Irving situation, whether that's letting him go or, coming to an agreement on an extension, whatever it may be, get it figured out. They also acquired Seth Curry in that James Harden, Ben Simmons trade, and Curry's now extension eligible. And this is an interesting situation because he's very similar to the Joe Harris mold, where he's not a great defensive player, but just a great shooter. Whether it's on movement, whether it's off ball, whether it's even on the dribble a little bit, Curry does have really good shooting skills. Defense suffers a little bit, but I think he's good, and I think that they should bring him back. So that will be a discussion that will probably go on into the season and probably into next offseason, along with Patty Mills as well. This Nets team does not have a whole lot of cap space as well. They are pretty much strung up. Let's throw that up here. This is their cap sheet right here. So as you can see, Durant, Irving, Ben Simmons, those are the guys who are getting the money. Joe Harris. Is there a potential move where Joe Harris could be a guy that could potentially be moved? I think maybe that's a possibility, but you're going to have to take another team being pretty okay to take on 18 and 19 million the next 2 seasons, just to have Joe Harris, who's coming off a pretty serious injury that kept him out of the playoffs. The other thing I wanted to mention here as far as the Nets go is just ultimately, I think they need what they need. I think they need a defensive center. I think they need a guy. I think Hassan Whiteside of the Utah Jazz, I think, would make total sense for them just on a league minimum deal. He played pretty solid this year, and I think that would be a relatively good fit. But they just need to get bigger. They also need more wings on the perimeter. They just have a lot of these guards like Seth Curry, Joe Harris, Patty Mills, just smaller guards that really can't impact the game defensively. And as we saw in the Celtics series, that is really what they needed. And so, that is what it is. A guy I believe that they should play more is actually Day'Ron Sharpe. Sharpe is a center who is very young, very raw, but I wonder if why we're hearing these reports of Nick Claxton kind of being a little bit more expendable. I wonder if we're hearing those reports because the Nets know what they have in Sharpe, and they're fine with him coming in and playing 15 to 20 minutes a night just to see what, as a backup, or even less than those, because they kind of had a revolving door as far as their centers and their big men went this year. So does Sharpe get some more minutes? I think he should, and I think he will going into next year. All right, last notes that I have here for the Nets. Again, extending Kyrie Irving, big thing. Extending Bruce Brown. Is he, do you want to have Bruce Brown if you're already going to play Ben Simmons this year? The Ben Simmons situation is, more than I want to get into. But I do think that if you pay Brown, isn't he playing that Simmons role? And you already have Simmons, so does that make him a little bit more of an expendable player? We'll see exactly how that is. And then I doubt Drummond, Aldridge, Griffin, Dragic come back. I already mentioned that. I don't really think that Claxton is going to be back. I remember that actually the Nets were trying to deal him at the deadline, and nothing happened. I think the Raptors are a team that would kind of make sense for him. And who signs for the veteran minimum? At this point, we have the Celtics, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Suns, the Bucks, the Warriors. These are teams that I think a lot of these free agents that are on the fringe of making some money versus taking the veteran minimum and not feeling if that's like a huge downgrade for them. I think that they could choose some of those teams to go play for. Now, who wins that battle? A lot of last year was really determined by who got the minimum. And a guy like Otto Porter took the minimum for Golden State. He ends up being a starter in the finals. So if they can nail some of these picks, whether it might be Otto Porter Jr. again, I don't think it will be. I think he'll probably want to get more money. But whatever happens, maybe something can go down there and they can get some luck with the minimum guys that they're going to try to sign. Last, I just wanted to touch about Deandre Ayden. The weird whole sportsbook odds that went up about Ayton being the second most likeliest option to go to the Nets, I think is really crazy. But ultimately, I don't think it happens. If it does, it's probably surrounding a Ben Simmons deal, right? Like that would have to be it. And even then, I just think that Simmons makes this team look a lot better, kind of brings them together, is exactly what they need. So ultimately, I don't see anything there. But that's it. That's it for the Nets. Again, they don't really have too much cap space. We'll see a lot of these veteran minimum guys go over there. Can they, work a deal where they get somebody who's not really, too great anymore, and be able to give them the minimum. And then we'll see exactly what happens with Joe Harris as well. But that's it for the Nets. Let me know what you think. What do you think they should do? What do you think? Who do you think they should target? All those other things. Is Steve Nash the right coach for this team? I don't know. But yeah, let me know in the comments section, and we'll see you in the next video. Feel free to click on other videos throughout the channel, and because we're doing more off-season previews for the NBA, so go check them out. And have a good one.